It's another edition of SVG's Sports Tech On Demand video interview series, taking you around the world of live sports video production, joined by a good friend of SVG now. He's Jon Landman. He's VP of Sales at Teradek. Jon, always wonderful to see you. How you doing, sir?
I am great. It's so good to see you. Crikey, you haven't aged nothing. I don't know what camera you're using, but I want one. You look like you're 22 years old again.
You should talk to my wife. She's telling me I need to tighten it up a little bit.
I tell you, I got to get one of those lenses.
So really excited to talk to you about what you guys are up to, because you really, as we're kind of talking before the call, you guys as a company have done a good job of kind of diversifying your input across the media and entertainment industry. Obviously, we focus on sports. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, over the past year, what are some of the trends that have emerged, and how has Teradek pivoted in any way, if necessary, to meet some of the new or evolving demands of the live sports market?
That's a very good question. And if you had 10 hours, I'd be able to fill you in a lot more detail. But, let's just take ourselves back to, a year and a half ago, before COVID, and what was Teradek really well known for at that stage, at least by most of the industry in sports, right, and in cinema and the industries that we're known. We were very much known for a product called the Teradek Bolt, right? Mm-hmm. This was used not just on cinema sets, but in stadiums, and it was used to transmit video, in an uncompressed, zero delay way, a long way, and back then we released 4K, right? So 4K mm-hmm. transmission, and then COVID hit, and live sports stopped, mm-hmm. right? Productions stopped, everything kind of just stopped, and you would have thought, what the hell is Teradek going to do, right? I mean, they are, a live company. Well, if you go back even before the Bolt product launches, which I think have been going for about 7-8 years now, we actually started our lives as an encoder manufacturer, but a very unique encoder, right? It was a very, very small device called the Teradek Cube. Mm-hmm. And it was never about what it was, because there's a lot of encoders out there. And, if I was working or trying to compete with other encoders, it would have not been the encoder of choice, because there's always bigger, better, badder encoders out there. That being said, we quietly sold about 180,000 of those units. A lot.
Yeah,
right?
Geez.
So yeah, we became, unbeknownst to the sports industry, unbeknownst to most of the world, we were a major streaming provider. We made an encoder that could stream direct to, Facebook, YouTube, any CDN you want. And it was used by everyone. We NFL used them, MLB used them. A lot of sports used them, not only for streaming to CDNs, but also for doing point-to-point. So, coming back to the beginning of COVID, suddenly live sports stopped, but live streaming really took off, mm-hmm. right? Not just for virtual productions, but also, any person that wanted to get their message out needed to live stream. So it kind of refocused Teradek as a onset or as a local transmitting company to a cloud-based company. And for those that knew us, and knew us from the encoding world, they were probably familiar with a product that we have, which is cloud-based, called the Teradek Core. Mm-hmm. Teradek Core is our cloud management encoder platform that allows us to manage, stream, record any of our encoders and transmit, distribute. So I could take a single feed from an encoder and then send it to multiple destinations, right? We've done this for many sporting events. I think the most destinations I've gone to is 110 Facebook pages from one encoder. So point being is that we have a pretty good foundation in the streaming world. And, you know, I would say that, you know, 50% of our company was actually IP based and streaming. So COVID came, IP picked up. Suddenly we're looking at the landscape of what's happening, and we're realizing that we can't ignore the cloud, right? We can't ignore IP. We should actually double down. We looked at what we could do in the cloud, and we looked at what people were asking us to do. We were starting to see a lot more activity in the gaming world because people are stuck at home. What are they doing? They're gaming. It wasn't an industry that it wasn't a brand new industry, but it was one that suddenly we're starting to look at the numbers here. And, you know, we know that that's an industry that has grown immensely. I would have said 10 years ago, if you'd asked me about streaming, I would have said it would have been the porn industry that helped us grow. Don't tell anybody. But now I would say it's the gaming industry that is really driving the technology within our industry, within our existing industries, sure. Right? So we looked at, you know, what is it that people are wanting from us, right? So we asked them from a creative perspective, not from a perspective of, you know, do you need 4K streaming? Do you need smaller encoders? Do you need higher bit rates? But what is it you're trying to do? And if I had to kind of boil this down to the essence, it was creating giving someone the ability to create their story, right? So if I talk to a gamer and say, okay, what's your story? It's very similar to what we're trying to do in the broadcast world, where we're trying to take what someone is doing, adding in graphics, adding in interviews with people, turning this person that's doing the streaming, who may not be a really technical person, but turning them into the star of their own show and allowing them to earn revenue from their stream. That's when we started to looking around and look at the companies that are doing this. And we started to do due diligence into who we saw were the leaders in that world. And as we were discussing offline, we started to look at Go Livestream. If I started to dig into their platform, or the more I started to dig into their platform, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is something that if I was a broadcaster, I would have said to myself that I need to buy a $50,000 switcher to do. And yet what we are doing for the gaming industry is all cloud-based, pay-as-you-go, picture-in-picture, graphics, everything that you're familiar with from a traditional switcher, but now doing it in the cloud. This has been the holy grail for a lot of people that produce gear, let's say, for the broadcast world, right? All those traditional companies that are building switches have all tried to, or are trying to, create something in the cloud. We go to a different industry, we find these guys that have not only built what others are trying to build, but they've added analytics. They've added the ability to look at and understand how to grow one's audience. These are all the tools that a traditional broadcaster has used over the air for the last 50 years, 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the same is true for the sports industry, right? But now, when we can take something that we have found and bring it into our world and combine our engineering team, we have about, you know, Teradek is about 250 people. We have about 50 engineers, and we combine them with the Lightstream engineers, and we combine our knowledge from the professional broadcast world. You know, I think that this is a very, very compelling company, and I'm very excited to start to look at their technology. And it moves us from an encoder manufacturer to actually a cloud platform that is going to be a player in the future for us, I see.
For sure.
Yeah.
Fascinating journey that the company has been on. John, we really appreciate you taking the time to give us a look inside of it. Very intrigued to see what you guys do in the cloud, and very intrigued to see how things play out in the esports side of things. We appreciate all the work you and your company are doing to help the sports video industry at this time. So thanks a lot for taking the time today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. He is Jon Landman. He is the VP of Sales at Teradek. You're definitely going to check out what they are up to. You can learn more about them and watch more of this SVG Sports Tech On Demand interview series now over at sportsvideo.org.